Don in London, hello. 9th of November, my video is all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. My addictive substance, alcohol, so I'm an alcoholic in recovery, and my behaviour could be equally addictive around people, places and things. So these days, I don't drink one day at a time, and I don't obsess around being with the right people, in the right places, doing the right things. I live life one day at a time, and it seems to work out reasonably well, as life can. Living reality, open to the choices that there are, realistic choices. And if I need make plans, I can work out what to do as I go along. But it's not just me battling against anything, it's me listening to everything which can be helpful, and trying not to filter out the good answers to living. So in the old days, 35 years of drinking, my very first drink doing the damage, which led to a pattern of trying to fix my feelings. The very first drink changed my outlook, changed my feelings, and I kept on doing it thereafter. But it was subconscious, or I was just fitting in with what everybody else was doing at the time. And then I just kept on doing it all the time, to the point in later life where I could not stop drinking no matter what I tried doing. I didn't have the answer inside me, life went to hell, and now it's come back again. But I needed help to find out how to find recovery. So medical people, professional people, family, community, you name it, they all tried to help me as I tried to help myself get out of this horrible addictive behaviour around drinking alcohol and trying to be right with people all the time. After all, did you not want me to be that way? And of course the answer is no. No. Freedom is where I started, and somehow I got stuck in the mess of addiction and dependency, depending on being with the right people in the right places, depending on the right job, right relationship with the right girl at the right time, driven mad to fit in. Weren't we all? Aren't we all? Well, no, actually. A lot of people say, no, quite often, I don't feel like doing that, or I don't want to do that because it's harmful. So I didn't know what was good for me, and I needed help to work out what to do next. And professional people got me dry for a few weeks, 3 weeks in fact, 19 days, and suggested that whilst they were able to keep me dry under supervision, what was I going to do after that? And the simple answer was revert back to type, because life was still horrible, and I needed a way to find inspiration and ways to keep well. And they suggested, the professionals, why not go to Alcoholics Anonymous? Those people seem to keep sober one day at a time, and maybe you can learn how they do it and then adopt their ideas and strategies to cope with life and not drink anymore, because one drink again would do the damage, setting a pattern of fixing and trying to find oblivion for the failure I've become, rather than say to myself, okay, it's not worked out, I can't stop on my own and I need help. But I did in the end. I got that moment of clarity. So the Fellowship of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, is where I ended up going, through fear rather than faith. And then I started to understand what they were about. Living a 12-step program, or having a 12-step toolkit to keep well, and a fellowship which works in unity, service and recovery around learning life and learning how to be of benefit to other people and still find your own life and be free to live it. So no more battling, no more fighting against something, even if it's a substance, no longer having to fight or battle against the next drink. You know, I lost the battle, and eventually, as they say, or as we say, surrendering and saying, okay, drink is never going to work for me anymore, because one drink won't work and 1,000 won't do. Life just goes to hell again if I drink. And it's easy to say that, but in the malady, in the addiction, I couldn't believe that people could get sober. And then I bumped into all these people in fellowship, in AA, who seemed to find out how to be sober one day at a time. And they said, we're not perfect. We make progress. Sometimes life works, and sometimes, and very often, it's very difficult, and it doesn't work. But we don't have to resort to a drink to get over it, or to cope with it. Actually, we don't get over things, we cope with things. So it's not overcoming something, it's coping with a change in our lives and how to do it. So I am part of fellowship of AA, but I don't speak for the fellowship. I can't. It's full of unique, authentic people who speak for themselves where they will. So people have a voice in AA and a voice outside AA, and they share about their recovery, if they choose to, wherever they will. But there is a caveat to that. I always say, if I were to relapse back into addiction and find myself drinking again for whatever reason, I would have to admit it and start over. Nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect, and I'm not suggesting for a moment I've cracked this for the rest of my life. I haven't. It's simply a one-day sober living program, and the fellowship you meet on any given day is the fellowship at its best or at its worst, in your own opinion and judgment of it, until you get to know it a bit better and be a part of what goes on. So progress, not perfection, ever. There is a saying, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed the path of fellowship and sobriety. Well, that's true, but most people aren't perfect like that. Have to have a few goes to see whether or not it's a good idea, or maybe find a different way of being sober, which is different. And of course there are many ways to be sober, but the one which works for me is fellowship. On hand, friendship and fellowship 24/7, rather than a professional being there once a week or twice a week, and very costly and outside my price range these days. So, rich or poor, people go to AA because it works, just for today. It's a one-day program with a one-day toolkit, and it's only as good as it gets, making progress for today. So what you see is what you get in fellowship. It's attraction, not promotion. We listen for the similarities which will keep us well for one day. And promotion offers a fix. Promoting something, an idea, is proselytizing, as they call it. It could be a religious fix or a spiritual fix. It doesn't work that way. Whether you're religious, have an understanding of spiritual, or simply live reality, whatever is your bag, you're not in control of it. We are all subject to the forces around us, of nature and other people. So progress, not perfect. That's all it can be. Coping and living with the difficult thing life is, living reality as much as we can. And sometimes we need our dreams to be inspired to move forwards. But fellowship is very much about keeping things in the day. What can you do today which are going to impact well today, and what can then follow tomorrow? Another sober day and a bit more progress. That's how it works for me. And on the question of anonymity, for me, anonymity is sacrosanct in fellowship, so we may find out the truth of who we are. And for me, because AA is an emotional and spiritual program, emotional, knowing what my feelings are, and spiritual, for me, is the ability to cope with reality, as many people suggest. So spiritual is living reality. Emotional and spiritual, feeling, knowing how I feel in the moment of now. That's just me and how it works for me. But everybody has their own take on how it works for them, and we share about it daily, or as often as we go, because that's what life is about. Learning and sharing from each other. Mine, I suppose I'm on the liberal side of life, which is enabling people to have the greatest freedoms they can possibly have. Freedom of choice without causing harm to other people. And that means taking account of our whole situation and the part of society in which we live and what we do. So living to the good of life rather than the less than good, the self-interested, uncaring part doesn't really work with me anymore. So AA, bedrock of my sobriety, made many friends, learned how to love and be loved back without conditions, and keep on learning wisdom from others. Looking outwards for answers rather than trying to make the answers for myself and other people. So no longer a controlling, manipulative type. I didn't even know I was until I realised what I was doing. I tried to control my environment and what was happening, rather than go with the flow of the environment and see what could happen. So I didn't even know what I was doing until it was pointed out to me. Even I could fool me most of the time. So what is AA? I share the AA preamble with a couple of additional sentences from the AA preamble, which is on this card in front of me. And I use the little card because if I recite it, I lose the meaning of it. So if I just say and read it, and add in a couple of things which were important to me, which is why it all works. So important for me. And my freedom outlook as well. Freedom for you to be you, and me to be me. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. So when we go to meetings, for me it's about sharing experience, strength and hope of what happened when I was drinking and what happens today. And I look for the similarities and not the differences in stories shared. I'm having a new intercom put in, indeed the whole block. The landlords decided to upgrade the intercom system, so there'll be a bit of knocking in the background. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. And this is my addition. There are no rules or regulations, or rules, laws or regulations in AA. Because if there were, we stubborn people wouldn't want to adhere to them anyway, would we? So only a desire to stop is the only requirement for coming into fellowship. A desire to stop drinking. You may not have stopped. Many of us had not stopped. Early on, we needed to gain some insight on how to just stop drinking and then listen. But there are no rules, laws or regulations. We might violate other people's sensibilities about how they perceive fellowship and how it works. So we can violate other people's opinions and beliefs. We don't actually violate in terms of rules, laws or regulations, which means that we can completely agree to disagree in fellowship. Anarchic democracy, it has been described as. There are no dues or fees for AA membership, so if you haven't got any money, it doesn't matter. We are self-supporting though through our own contributions, which means that we don't take donations from outside sources, nor have great big piles of money. We have a prudent reserve, just enough to keep things ticking along. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. But what I know is people in AA are allied with sects. They do belong to denominations. They do have political views. They have affiliations to organisations and institutions. They do wish to engage in controversy as individuals, and they do wish to endorse or oppose causes. So people in AA are very active in the outside world, and you will hear all about that. But the fellowship of AA is there for one reason, and it's this. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. So the fellowship is run in unity, service and recovery to keep the fellowship safe from outside influences and be there for one thing, a desire to stop drinking and share how to keep sober. So you'll hear everybody's story, and you will hear different people talk about how they got sober and how they want you to follow their path. So I don't want you to follow my path, quite frankly. Just I share about what works for me, and to give me freedom of choice today, I've adopted the 12 principles of living, the 12 steps, as a way to process what's going on for me. it enables me to have freedom of choice today. That's all I ever wanted, rather than to be fearful and make choices based on fear, rather than on faith. And when I say faith, it's faith in doing the next right thing given the reality of my situation. So 12 steps to help me learn and grow into whatever human being I can learn and grow to be with what I have left, because I'm on the wrong end of it of the lifespan in terms of making new starts. But I do believe I make a new start every morning, and sometimes, you know, all I need to know is what is my emotional state, what's my mood, how am I feeling, which will impact on my thinking. And the fellowship program is emotional and spiritual well-being. Emotional, knowing my feelings, and spiritual is dealing with reality, coping with the moment of now. That's simple, yet me as a human, I would make everything complicated simply because I could. If it was my way and I could get my way, all well and good, but I'd want everybody else to be happy as well, and so I would be lavish with whatever money I had and whatever I could offer as a human being. And then I spread too thin and poured alcohol on top, and what happened? I burned out. I also did a lot of things which were very superficial, and these days I prefer to cherish experiences with people. I don't have to be in charge, and I don't have to be managed by anybody. What I need to do is work out how I fit in and am included with my choices. Freedom to choose, so important. It's the very bedrock of recovery for me. I'm not doing recovery to fit in and just be sober. I want a life. I want to experience life, to have a view on life and how life is working out, to have external interests, which I do plentiful. There isn't enough time in the day these days. Before, when I was drinking, I just used to work hard and play hard and let the rest happen without any sort of understanding of it. But today I'm very interested in so many things. There isn't enough time in the day. It makes me tired. Anyway, the AA daily reflection for today. Stepping into the sunlight. But first of all, we shall want sunlight. Nothing much can grow in the dark. Meditation is our first step out into the sun. This comes from As Bill Sees It, Bill Wilson being one of the co-founders. Sometimes I think I don't have time for prayer and meditation, forgetting that I always found the time to drink. It is possible to make time for anything I want to do if I want it badly enough. When I start the routine of prayer and meditation, it's a good idea to plan to devote a small amount of time to it. I read a page from our fellowship books in the morning and say thank you, God, when I go to bed at night. As prayer becomes a habit, I will increase the time spent on it, without even noticing the foray it makes into my busy day. If I have trouble praying, I just repeat the Lord's Prayer, because it really covers everything, or whatever the Lord's Prayer might be in other religions. It's still pretty much give us our daily bread, a roof over our heads, be kind to people, and forgive everything of everybody. Then I think of what I can be grateful for and say a word of thanks. And it goes on to say, I don't need to shut myself in a closet to pray. It can be done even in a room full of people. I just remove myself mentally for an instant. As the practice of prayer continues, I will find I don't need words for God. I don't need words, for God can and does hear my thoughts through silence. So, depending on your understanding of God, and my understanding of God is it's a very down-to-earth way of looking at it for me, because I can't make it complicated. God doesn't speak through me particularly. I just speak what I've found and share what other people have shared with me. Yeah. Everybody's opinion has equal weight. Everybody needs to be heard. And prayer and meditation. There's an inner voice going on in my head. I'm pointing at my head because that's where the inner voice is. it's saying to me, right now it's saying to me I can hear noises off in the background, and I hope that this video is clear enough to be heard. So the inner voice is concerned that I can get the message across. So I'm concentrating a bit on that and a bit on another part of the process, if you like. But when it comes down to prayer and meditation, what do I need to do? What are we going to do now? What do I need to do? How am I feeling? Why? And what can I do? Is assertive. How are we feeling? Why? And what can we do? Is empathy. What's going to be the mix today? So these meditations and reflections are going on in my head all the time. And it's like 1,000 disorganised thoughts are going on. And then, as I say to myself, stop for an instant and say, what's the can do, can't do of now? What is the can do and can't do of now? What do I need to do today? And if I meet my needs, my wants, which are far exceeding my needs, will be put to one side yet again. And I might say to myself, well, why didn't I have enough money for 100 Krugerrands so I would have some money in my old age? And the answer is, needs met today in this very difficult world, wants forgotten. And that's how it works for me. So prayer and meditation, the mind, the consciousness, or conscious contact with reality, we can be so lost in our own thoughts that we've lost conscious contact with what's going on right now. So whatever your concept of God, God works now, or wherever else would he be able, he, she or it, or whatever it is, be able to work. So if I can access truth today from other people, behave and understand what it is to love people and be loved back unconditionally, and keep on learning wisdom, I feel like I've got a conscious contact with the here and now, reality, and whatever God may be, which is probably the wisdom you give me from everywhere. Every one of you out there is when I get my wisdom, because it took me nearly 48 years to realise that I was only scratching the surface of real life. And these days I scratch a bit deeper into the real life of truth, love and wisdom. So, God for me is a very realistic and understandable concept. And there's one thing about spiritual, the superstition and spiritual. Superstition is based on fear, spiritual is based on faith. So when we feel superstitious, I have a lucky coin in my pocket, or I won't tread on the cracks in the pavement, or if I pray right it's going to work well. That's superstition. Faith is living the truth of now, even though it's difficult. Faith is spiritual. November 9th, my thoughts. Our inner voice of reflection, meditation and prayer can drive us mad. In other words, this can be spinning around like a one-armed bandit. My inner voice, now very focused on looking for answers outside me. This is me now, outside for the answers rather than the spinning wheel inside my head, where reality flows and the answers to my problems. Where reality flows and the answers to my problems are there today. The truth is out there, and happy to learn, feeling life as it is and living reality. Accepting life is difficult means no battles to fight. I can have a can do and cannot do, and wisdom to learn the difference, working today. So that's me, that's my sort of higher reflection. And now here comes my lower reflection. This is of a meeting recently. Sharing is by raised hand, and I get to choose, said the secretary. He chose his mates, old-timers and all men, except for a female visitor. With hand raised, I looked him in the eye on several occasions, and you know who you are. Held my gaze and picked other people. I know why. If he had picked me, his friends would disapprove, fear of not fitting in with their political correctness, because I'm not very politically correct in my outlook, but I'm entitled to it. And it works well for me. The freedom to be me and the freedom to be you is where I stand. Step 6, a key is always a key to why people do this. Why do people try and fit in? And why do people try and conform to certain patterns set out by other people? And the answer is they fear lack of inclusion. They fear exclusion. They still have a brave face, thinking, I know best because my ego tells me if I do it this way it'll be alright. And any meeting where a secretary gets to choose and not the speaker is very strange, because it implies that the secretary knows better than the person who is doing the chair, and it's causing an underprivilege for the chair, which makes me realise that maybe I ought not go back to that meeting for a while. But if it rains I will, because it's the nearest meeting to me, so that gives the game away for those who know where I live. Anyway, if he had picked me, his friends would disapprove. Fear of not fitting in and their political correctness. Step 6 is a key here, which is fear, ego and brave facing. And the answer is step 7. It's always the answer, faith. So what does step 6 is about? Defects of character. Too many times being fearful, too many times putting on a brave face, an ego covering up shame and guilt, just in case. I'm going to exclude you from my picking today because it may not fit in with other people in the room. But once you start picking and choosing, you are exercising judgment. Better meetings for me is where you just put your hand up and, the luck of the draw. Put a mask on so nobody can tell who you are. No, I don't mean that. Faith. Step 7 is about faith, courage and confidence. Faith, courage and confidence is something we can improve on a daily basis. So prayer and meditation, looking outwards, courage and faith to say I don't know the answers today, but when you don't pick me, you are whatever you are. But I used a very bad word yesterday, it's see you next Tuesday, apparently spelt with a C. I used that very bad word in a meeting, and the reason why I use words like that is because they are real words. But on YouTube I don't, because sometimes they pick up on them and say you can't use words like that and you'll have to start again. So those are my thoughts today. There's much more. I've got to get some more ink for my printer as well. Where am I today? Somebody asked me this. I feel happy this morning when we can let go and speak the truth as we find it. Doesn't mean it's going to be politically correct, because what is political correctness? It's fitting in when you don't feel that you ought to fit in. Political correctness is expression of other people's ideas and behaving to other people's ways of understanding the world. Part of fellowship is about open, honest and willing, loving people, having tolerance for people, and being oneself without hurting others. Hurt people hurt people. Now the only way a person uses judgment negatively is when they've been hurt, or they fear retribution from people they know. It wouldn't look good if we did this, it wouldn't look good if we did that. How will it show up? Better it show up badly so you can get some feedback. And they may say, actually it's not as bad as I thought, we needed to air that situation and that subject, and on we go. So truth, love, wisdom. Key is progress, not perfect. So with the knocking on the door or behind the door, the intercom system being put in and installed by our landlord, it's been out of action for a while in some places around here, so I'm very pleased that other people are being reconnected. Minor inconvenience for a maximum benefit. Life is life. I'm glad to be sober today, however sober that may be, but emotionally and spiritually, how do I feel about life in the moment of now? It's okay. A bit quirky, a bit tired, a bit of fatigue. I need to check my blood sugars and inject some insulin to make sure that my blood sugars are right, or get them back into a manageable place. Not perfect, because I'm not perfect. That's what it's about, progress. The serenity prayer, the can do, I can change me and my attitudes and behaviour. The can't do, I can't change you, your attitudes and behaviour. Don't want to anymore. Want to know what you feel about life? Want to know how you're coping with life? No, need to know, actually. Need to know how you feel about life and how you're coping with it sometimes, so that we can share and get on and help each other. It's not a competition for me anymore. I'm not competing for those very elusive, rare jobs which pay hundreds of times more than the average income. Actually, mine was never hundreds of times, but it was far too plentiful, really, in some ways. Anyway, the serenity prayer to God or in good conscience, in my poverty-stricken little hovel, our needs are met, once forgotten. To God or in good conscience, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Courage to accept the things I cannot change. Courage to change the things I can. And the wisdom to know the difference. I'll just say it again. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Courage to change the things I can. And the wisdom to know the difference. Always in the imperfectly perfect moment of now. And just for today.